Dr. Montgomery sent an email out this morning. Unfortunate problem with 67. You want to address it?
I want to address that. This goes back to willing to tackle the hard problems.
Yeah.
And to be as transparent as we can be with the community. There is zero tolerance for any type of abuse of children for our faculty and staff. And if we find out that there's any history of that, even if it hasn't happened here, we will do a complete investigation and we will make decisions based on the findings. And in this case, when we did the full investigation, this employee was terminated for actions that did not happen in the district. And then, Pete, I'm talking about it. Like, I'm putting out emails about it. We're not sweeping anything under the rug. John led a state initiative last year with 65 and 67 to try to get a law passed, which is called FACE law, which he'll speak about much more eloquently. But it is to protect districts from situations such as these, where teachers and staff cannot resign and keep files closed and move from one place to another. So if you want to know where I am, I'm not telling all the good stories around here. We're tackling the difficult problems. And if I find out or get wind that there is any question in this area of grooming, we are going to investigate it swiftly and take extreme actions if it's substantiated.
So if we do a background check, we can't find out if the teacher was grooming, or is this like a recruiting issue too? Like, what's the...
At that time, you couldn't.
Yeah. So this is lovely. Yeah. So,
yeah. So John, you should talk about faith.
Yeah.
Place law. I don't want you talking about 67 stuff. Let me.
No. Yeah. So 1920, this came up with, as we looked backwards in terms of seeing what was happening.
1920?
No, 2019, 2020.
Okay. Got it.
And so one of the things we
I didn't know
at,
either.
yeah, we were looking at a law in Michigan, and the law in Michigan allowed, if there was an accusation or an issue, to actually hold that in the file but make it visible, allow it also to get down to the state. So ISB, from a licensure perspective, could also have that information, because what was happening is that teachers or admin or anybody, they could lock it in their employment file and privacy laws wouldn't let you see it. So you do the background check. So, but unless you were criminally accused or charged or something happened, there'd be no visibility to that information. So what would happen is you get accused of something and it would go into your discussion and say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to retire right now. And they would retire, lock it, and then no other district could find it. So the grooming laws and FACE law, it took us about a year and a half, 2 years. We worked with a couple different organizations, and we basically crafted language to basically say, look, and the teacher union supported us because they don't want jerks running around in their union that are acting bad. And we got the superintendents and the state folks. And so this was led by a Congressman Mussman out of Northbrook area. And so we brought in this language for FACE law to basically what they labeled it as pass the trash. That's what we called it. And so I could basically lock it up and go to the next one. And you know what? We're fine. We did what we were supposed to do, let the person go, but no one else knew about it. So how do you protect against pass the trash? So you created a visibility for those accusations. And in the same way, you gave that teacher the ability to go defend themselves, because maybe you got a bad admin person that doesn't like the teacher and they want to do something to them. But you give that person due process to fight against that, claim their innocence. But at the same time, if there's something that happened there and there was accusations, that was visible. And then the district looking at that for the next hire, or ISB removing their licensure, saying you can't have a certificate for license. All of a sudden that becomes now visible. And that got signed into law last summer by Pritzker. But it took literally 3.5 years from defining that, writing that, getting that included, and then FACE law includes other procedures and policies within the grooming laws. It was kind of a two-part step. So those have been some of the things I've been working on the legislative initiatives and mandates Professional training on those things, gaining back some hours for the district has been another one. But those were things that we felt we should lead on and do. We had direct instances of seeing some things that had happened in the past and saying, we need to fix this.
I'll
And
tell
that
you
was
that
one of them. So
in this situation, our recruiting and vetting efforts, we're stringent on every level we can. We're HR screening all the candidates. We do fingerprints, we do background checks, we do state police, FBI, sex offender registry, all of that stuff, Pete. Nothing would have been flagged in this situation. That's why faith law is so important. And without a tip, we would have never known. So in that email that I sent out this morning, I showed, like, there was at the end, like, here's where, if you know anything about anything, this situation or other, we want to know, because this is not acceptable anywhere, but especially not here.
On the 115 side, and this is it.
Yep.
You got that lawsuit going on. I know you can't comment on lawsuits, but there was a quote that was put out there that the school doesn't have a duty to protect the kids. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and dad sees that and like, what WTF? What?
Yeah.
How do we address that, John or Matt?
Yeah. Well, yeah, simple. I'll start and let you finish, Matt. But I think this was from a teacher back in late 80s. And he was on and he was there. He is one of these that brought this topic up in terms of when it came to our, I think, view in 2019, 2020, that initiated some of this work on the FACE law. But basically, it was something we were not aware of. And even though he got pushed out in 2009, there were limits on what could happen or what was going on. So from a legal case perspective, what I believe, and this is unfortunate, but it's basically they're trying to deal with something that occurred back in 89, 88, whatever that individual was accusing him of. From our perspective, what we're simply trying to say is, is there a limit to the statute of limitations and what today's taxpayers should or should not be on the hook for something that we effectively had no knowledge of? Now, if they can prove that there was and those types of things, I got it. There'll be a lawsuit and they'll go through. But from our perspective, I don't love the legal wording, but from the standpoint, this is something that occurred many, many years ago. We've made substantive changes in terms of our policies, our hiring, and what the culture is at the school. And as Matt just eloquently talked about, there is a zero tolerance for this, and we have a very thorough process. So from this standpoint, just it's something of that, and the lawyers and the insurance companies, they're the ones in court doing this type of stuff in terms of fighting it or justifying it is really out of our purview in regards to that. I'm kind of a witness to what is happening effectively. Matt, anything else?
Yeah, so a couple of things. This is a legal strategy. It doesn't represent our values. You're seeing our values play out real time, Pete, with the communication I sent out this morning. At the same time, we have a duty to protect today's taxpayers and do complete due diligence through the legal avenues. But our values are that we have an implicit commitment to protect our students. And any type of thing that is being put out that is saying different from that, all I would say is look at what happened today. That's where we stand on this issue.